Today, I was Christian Brown's guest on the CIO Insights podcast at ETS Solutions. It was a great experience. Christian and I have talked through the past months or so about careers, topics, opportunities, and this gave us a real opportunity to talk about some deep topics here. Christian had put a lot of thought into the questions. Some of them were a little tricky, but fun to answer nonetheless. And I have to say, the questions were very appropriate for all levels of IT organizations, meaning everyone starting in their career right up to peer CIOs. We can all learn every day, and this is just another way to do it. ETS Solutions has been in business for over 20 years, helping corporate clients with their digital transformation initiatives. Please visit etssolutions.com to learn more.
And now a word from our sponsor, ETS Solutions.
Hello, this is Jim Beard with ETS Solutions. Thanks for checking out our new podcast series, CIO Insights, where we get a little bit more personal with our guests. We talk about their careers, we talk about their personal interests, and we even ask them to give a little bit of advice to those who are still coming up the ranks. For over 20 years now, ETS has been providing award-winning technology consulting services. Based on our 5 core values of faith, family, community service, client experience, and trust, we're able to offer consulting services to just about every vertical. And our services cover everything from edge computing and cloud services to voice and data to cybersecurity and project management. Whatever your technology needs are, we can help. We invite you to check out the link below or call the number below to find out more about ETS and where we can fit into your technology stack. Enjoy the podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the CIO Insights podcast by ETS Solutions. This podcast was designed to tell the stories of technology leaders in a way that provides value and gives practical action items for you to take away, whether you're new to the technology industry or whether you've been in it for 20 years. And today we have a special guest. We have Mr. Tom Hall, and I'm excited to read his bio because it is pretty impressive. So Tom Hall is a former CIO of Genuine Parts Company, Automotive Parts Group, which is the largest subsidiary of Genuine Parts Company. And Genuine Parts Company is seeing about 18 billion in revenue.
Just about.
And Tom was responsible for leading the IT organization through a business revenue growth of 40%. So very cool. So Tom, welcome.
Thanks, Christian. Good to be here.
Nice. And so how about just start off with telling us about your path? What was the path that led you to where you are today?
Absolutely. Well, I am a longtime IT guy. I started in IT after college. I started my career as a COBOL programmer. Wow. So I wouldn't say that my path was definitely defined when I started out. I just liked IT. I enjoyed IT. I loved the programming, and that's kind of where I started and where I went. As I took a job as a programmer right after college, I grew, and then I became an analyst and eventually moved into management. It's interesting as we talk about management. My first management job was at a company I worked for, Westinghouse. Okay. Fun job. I was managing a team that I was a member of. I was promoted from a member of that team, which is a challenge in itself for a new manager. And anyway, I did that job, was successful at it. And then when I was making a career move to Atlanta, when I got married, I had an opportunity to move back into an individual contributor role. And I thought, this is great. Individual contributor. I don't have to deal with people and the challenges and their problems. I can just do my thing. And, Christian, I was in that job for about 3 months and I was miserable. So I learned a lot at that point. I learned a lot about myself, that I felt like I was more successful and made a bigger impact driving changes through people than doing it myself. So that was a big learning for me. It was all about, driving a team and figuring out what makes people click and going with that. So, I've just continued to grow my career and, have been CIO for 2 multi-billion-dollar companies over the past 10 years or so. Yeah. It's been a fun ride.
I bet. That's awesome. And so through that journey of leading people, what are some lessons that you've learned about people and then about yourself as a leader?
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest thing I've learned about people is you really have to understand what drives people. What is their passion? What is their focus? What are their challenges? Because, the greatest thing you can do as a leader is take a person that maybe isn't performing at their premium or their maximum,
Right.
and turning that around. And that happens by figuring out really what is their driver, what are the buttons to push with those people. So I think as a leader, you really got to take time to know your people. You've got to take time to know what makes them tick. But I think probably also you have to be genuine. You have to really be truthful with people, be honest with people, and be genuine. And that builds trust and integrity. Yep. And that goes a long way in having your team support you and making things happen.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So what do you believe is one common myth about your profession or your field that you would like to debunk?
One common myth. I would say the one common myth I would debunk is IT is not just about technology. IT is about the business. IT is about how do you use technology to drive the business? How do you use technology to move the business? So I think there's still a pocket of people that think IT is all about the bits and the bytes and the program, but it's all about, how do you enable the business through technology? Yeah. That's what we're here for, right?
Yeah. And that's so interesting for me. A little bit about my background. So I was an entrepreneurship major in college. I've never had any real passion for technology until I started learning about how technology drives business and drives revenue growth. I started hearing stories about how companies have went from 1 million to 100 million from implementing technology. So I'm super inspired by that. So it's cool that you say that. And you've been the CIO of, like you said, 2 multi-billion-dollar companies. So I want to ask you a little bit about that.
Yeah, sure.
So when you go into a multi-billion-dollar company as a CIO, do you become like a shareholder? Is that part of your compensation package, or what does that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. Compensation packages come in all forms. Public companies typically have some kind of stock program they offer. That often is called a long-term incentive. So it basically is structured as kind of an incentive to keep people with the company over time. So while you might get a stock award, that maybe doesn't vest or become yours for a number of years. So it's an incentive for the company to kind of keep you chasing the carrot there.
Wow, okay.
But really, it's not just about stock. It's really about how do you drive the business performance. So while in public companies, stock might be an option, and private companies, profit sharing might be an option. Right. But typically, any of those compensation programs are tied to company performance. Even merit raises every year for everyone from the lowest level in the organization to the top of the organization. Those merit raises are often tied to company performance. So while you might be eligible for a merit increase of 10% of your salary, that also might be tied to sales performance of the company. So if the company only performs at 75%, you may not get the full award.
Wow.
So really, as you think about compensation, as you think about incentives, everything is about still how do you keep focused on driving the business.
Yeah, that makes sense. And do you feel like there's added pressure if it's a bigger organization and more shareholders? If it's a public company, does that add pressure onto your role?
It does add pressure because today's shareholders, it's a very quarter to quarter focus. the company is very driven by quarterly performance in the marketplace, and the market is very fickle. So if you have a poor quarter and you're not performing well, people are moving to the stock that is performing well. So public companies have to really balance a long-term strategy with how do I continue to grow quarterly and show ongoing shareholder value.
Yeah. Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this is cool and gives value to people who are coming up in the technology industry, because for a lot of us, the goal is to be a CIO of a multi-billion-dollar company. So I think it's cool to just hear that dialogue about what comes with it, right? Like what comes with that compensation package? How do you deal with shareholders? Things like that.
Yeah.
So I hope they're able to take.
I read an article just a week ago or so, and it had a great question in there that someone asks every new employee, particularly entry-level employees or folks out of college. And that was, how do we make money as a company? Tell me how I make money as a company.
Wow.
And it's a great question, because everybody should know going into any company, what are the drivers? How is that company making money? Wow. Now, that's an appropriate question for a public company or for a profit company. Maybe a nonprofit isn't about making money, but they have a mission. They have a goal. They have a drive.
Yeah.
So it's very important as you're starting in your career, and even as you advance in your career, is really thinking about, how do I bring value to the organization? How do I bring drive to the organization that's going to help the organization meet its goals?
Yeah. Wow.
And, it's not about implementing a new system. It's not about administering a new software package. It's about, how do those tools help the business reach their goal and their mission?
Wow, that's amazing.
It was a great article, yeah.
That's amazing. And I think just for the younger audience that's watching this, that's leverage that you can use when you go into an interview, knowing what the company does to make money, and leading with that.
That is a perfect observation, because if the company doesn't ask you the question, but you weave it into your response, wow, how impactful is that?
Yeah.
Hugely impactful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a good differentiator, yeah.
So next question for you. What are the best resources that have helped you along the way?
Wow, best resources. There are so many out there, and there are more every day. Early in my career, it was mostly people and my network. And we talk a lot about network all the time and the value of that. And I would like to dig in on that just for a second. But it's also learning. It's also, today there are so many opportunities to learn online. Yeah. You don't have to go to an institution to learn something today. It's all out there. So take advantage of those, and, set a personal goal to learn something new every quarter. Set a personal goal to grow. Yeah. Maybe it's something you don't know anything about but want to learn. Yeah. So, but also shifting back to network, we all talk about the network and how important the network is. Mm-hmm. It's hugely important. So I will tell you that I met a woman at my first job out of college. And she was a bit older than me. She was a bit in a higher position, but she saw something in me that she wanted to develop and help me develop. And so she helped me through my early years with just different suggestions. There was once, I remember I was working on a project. I was 2 years out of college, and I had everything ready to go. And she said, well, why haven't you started yet? And I'm like, well, I'm waiting for them to tell me to do it. And she said, what are you waiting for? Go, do it. And I hear that in my mind, but this is a woman who I still to this day keep in touch with. Wow. Through the years, our lives took us in different places, but we both have ended up here in Atlanta. Wow. So at least once a year, we catch up. And, our relationship has changed over time, but she still offers me great wisdom, and she probably gets some morsels from our conversation too. Yeah. But, so that's hugely valuable. And, I'm meeting her next week, actually. We had to take a break for COVID. And I'm really looking forward to it because I just really enjoy the time with her. So, build your network. It doesn't always have to be a mentor or a mentee relationship. Look for people who complement you. Look for people who are like you. Look for people who can help you along the way. And then continue to build those relationships and recognize that it's a give and take. You got to give to get. So recognize that, you're offering to these folks and they're offering to you. So that's a big learning. And I know everyone talks about the network and the value of it, and it is important.
Yeah. And I think that's why people do talk about it. I think in every episode that we've had so far, the network and relationships have come up, but that's because it's maybe arguably the most important, part of your career.
It is.
And I love that story that you shared about that woman. And I'm curious to your thoughts on the longevity of relationships, right? Building out long relationships and meaningful relationships. So what is some advice that you can give someone coming up who is starting to meet people in the professional realm, but they don't know who they should, they don't know who or how they can keep the relationship going with someone that they meet, right?
Well, it takes effort. I mean, that's the thing you've got to keep in mind is that it takes effort to keep these relationships going. And I have several long-term, another friend of mine I've worked with at 3 different companies over the past 25 years, and I still see him once a month or so. And we're friends as well as co-workers, so that, we have a lot more in common, but you really need to focus on the relationships that are going to help you and that you can help them. Through your career, you're going to meet thousands of people, thousands of people. And some of them are going to be very important at a point in time. And some of them are going to come and go. And some of them are going to be lifelong relationships. So I think the advice I would give is you kind of will feel it. It's kind of an organic situation. Someone will see something in you and they'll really want to help you, or you will just have a colleague that you say, hey, this person's moving on the same path. I want to stay connected with them because I think down the road we're going to have similar challenges. It's important to have contacts and people in your network that don't always work with you, because sometimes you need to be able to really be able to talk very candidly about challenges and issues that you don't want to be in the workplace.
Wow.
So sometimes you want to be able to say, hey, I'm really having a problem with my boss here, and this is what happened. It's what he said. This is what she said. And
so just being vulnerable.
Yeah, but you don't want necessarily that to leak back into the office environment. So, you'll know as you build trust with people, but sometimes getting people out of your immediate comfort area is good, because they sometimes offer very objective and sometimes very candid advice. You might give that example about what's going on in the office, and they might say, well, you're crazy. This is what is happening there.
Right. Wow.
So, but the thing is, you want to build trust. Build trust and build confidence that you can share and it not go other places.
Yeah. That's good. I like that. And I always love talking about relationships and just learning about how other people view relationships and just the stories, that you have. And I want to say a quote here that I love so much. I believe it's an ancient proverb, and it goes, a smart man learns from his own mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others, and a foolish man never learns.
That's a very accurate statement.
So I love that. And so on that note, I want to ask you about some of your mistakes or failures, if you will.
Sure.
What do you feel like has been your biggest failure, and what have you learned from it?
Wow, my biggest failure. I've had several. I've had more than one. So thinking of the biggest one might be a challenge here. The one that really pops up for me is when I worked at a contact lens company before Genuine Parts Company.
Okay.
And we were putting in a new warehouse management system.
Okay.
And we had a warehouse that distributed contact lenses for the United States, one distribution center to cover the whole United States.
Wow.
And we put in a new distribution center system. And I had moved into the role, so the project was already well down the path when I took the role as CIO of that organization. The consultants told me everything was ready to go. My folks told me everything was ready to go. Everyone was saying things were good and ready to go.
Yeah.
My gut told me we still had problems. My gut told me we weren't ready to go. And I didn't listen to my gut. We pulled the trigger, and it was probably the longest 2 months of my life because we were not moving product through that distribution center. We were the sole distribution center for the United States for this company. So we were slowing down product. We were not getting product to our customers to sell and put on people's eyes. What would happen then is the practitioners would prescribe a competitor product, and you might lose a sale for life.
Wow.
So, you know, it was a very trying couple of months because, you know, we knew we had product. We could see the product. We couldn't get it through the system so that we could pick, pack, and ship it and keep control of our inventory.
Wow.
So, you know, that was the biggest learning for me there was, you know, if you got a gut feeling, there's probably more there than just a gut feeling. Really pull the covers back and understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But, you know, I've mentioned I've had several mistakes in my career or opportunities to learn, you could say.
I love that.
And it's interesting. My daughter is, she's just finished her undergrad degree. She's getting ready to go to grad school, but she's working, and she had a situation where things didn't go well. And, you know, the big thing is that companies don't always expect things to go well. You're really measured and you're really graded, if you will, on how you solve the problem, how you come out of the situation.
Yeah.
So we know we're going to have problems. You know, what I look for in people in my team when we have a problem is how do they solve it? How do they come out of it? Do they bury their head in the sand and say, well, it's just what it is? Do they start looking for creative ways to solve the problem? Yeah. So, you know, mistakes are going to happen. We're going to have problems in our career. The challenge is, you know, how do you quickly assess the situation, focus on what's important, and come out of the problem?
Yeah.
So that's the advice. You're going to have problems. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to go home and say, wow, I wish I did that differently.
Wow.
But really what you've got to do is think about how do I come out of it and how do I get back on an even footing?
I love that. And I believe that's advice that it can be useful for anybody throughout their career.
Any level.
At the beginning.
I reflect today on things that happened a month ago and how, okay, I would have done that differently.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Can you read this?
No, I can't. I don't have my glasses.
Okay, so I wear this bracelet every day. I used to sell them in college, and it says, I never lose. I either win or learn.
Perfect.
And that speaks to exactly what we just talked about.
It's exactly the same thought there.
Yeah. So I love that. And like I said, that's great advice. I know that's the key takeaway for this episode. So
yeah,
I'm happy that we got to share that.
Focus on how you come out of the problem.
That's very good. So as we wrap it up here, kind of talk about what's next for you in your journey.
Yeah, what's next for me?
What's next for Tom Hall?
It's interesting. You know, when I left Genuine Parts late last year, you know, it was kind of part of how do we compress IT at a campus where we had two major IT organizations. But I was also at a point where I was able to kind of reap the benefits of all my work and, consider, is it time to retire? Is it time to do something different?
Yeah.
So, I've spent the last few months just really, spending time with my family, spending time with myself. Got a few things in the works, still early to talk about them, but I don't think I'm done yet.
Awesome.
So still working on a few things. I have a gift right now. My daughter, who, when she left for undergrad, we raised my daughter to be very independent. And my wife and I said, when she leaves for college, she'll never move back home. Yeah. Well, never say never, because she graduated in November. COVID was in full swing.
Oh,
she has a job at a nonprofit in New York City, so she's working remotely. So she's like, well, I just, it doesn't make sense to keep an apartment where she was in college. So she's back home with us. So I've had 6 months with my 22-year-old daughter to really spend a lot of time. And that's been a gift.
Yeah.
Because I never, I thought when she left for college, she was never going to come back and live at home. And so she's leaving again in a month or so for Washington, D.C. for grad school. And we're excited for her for that. But, as CIOs, we sacrifice a lot along the way. I sacrificed a lot as she was growing up. I missed a lot of important events. I missed a lot of time with her that you never get back. So this has been a gift that I've really enjoyed. And, and maybe that's another advice for up and coming CIOs is, always keep that balance. I didn't always keep the balance. And, it's important. Always keep the balance, the family balance, the work-life balance. And, it's much more common now. It's talked about much more today than it was even 5 or 10 years ago. Yeah. But it's so important.
Wow. That's
keep
good.
the balance. Yeah.
So we're going to get into our Fab Five round.
Oh, the Fab Five.
The Fab Five, where we ask quick 5 rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right.
Before we get into that, I want to mention that this podcast is brought to you by ETS Solutions. ETS Solutions is a faith-based technology consulting company that specializes in multi-location implementations with the ETS user experience guarantee to decrease costs, increase revenue, or increase productivity every time. So for more information about ETS Solutions, visit etssolutions.com. And now, Tom, Fab Five, you ready, sir?
Yeah, you should have given me the questions before you did your spiel so I could think about them. Let's go.
Let's do it. So question number 1, if you could have one superpower, what would that be and why?
Oh, a superpower. I think that's an easy one.
Yeah.
Time travel.
Ooh, where'd you go?
I would go ahead. I mean, when you look at the advances that have happened in the last recent years, the last 5 to 10 years, wow, I can't even imagine what the next 10 are going to bring.
Wow.
So wouldn't it be fun to have a preview into that?
Yeah, I have to dive into that because I'm curious now. So what technology are you most interested in? Maybe emerging technology or just anything in the future?
Well, I think there's going to be things in 5 years we haven't even thought about, believe it or not. Wow. But I think the autonomous vehicles and the self-driving cars, that is really is intriguing to me. Yeah. So it'll be fun to see where that goes. And it'll go there sooner than later, I think.
I believe it.
It'll be there sooner than later.
Awesome. Okay, back on track. Number 2, what is one thing that isn't on your Facebook, LinkedIn, or Twitter?
Well, I don't have a Facebook account. I kind of choose to keep up with my friends outside. There's kind of too much information out there already. I try to keep my social media very professionally focused. I try to keep my personal stuff out of it. So so you'll find lots about my professional life, but not a lot about my personal life.
Nice. Personal should stay personal, huh?
Yeah.
Love that. And if you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who would that be and why?
One person, dead or alive. Well, I think a very interesting dinner conversation could be had with Bill Gates.
Oh, yeah.
Now, not just because of everything going on right now in his life, but When I read about Bill Gates, when I watch documentaries that he's in, he is an incredibly knowledgeable person. He spends his days reading volumes of books, materials, studies. There is not much he doesn't know about. So I think that could be a very interesting conversation.
Yeah. What's one question that you would ask him?
Oh gosh.
I know I'm kind of detouring here.
I would probably ask him if he could do his journey over again, what would he change?
Wow.
He might say his marriage, but that's, like I said, the last few weeks have probably changed the whole tone of how that would go.
Oh yeah. That's funny. Okay, number 4. What is your favorite word, or what word do you use the most?
I think my favorite word is action.
Okay.
Take action. I kind of have this mantra that I share with my teams at work. I share with my daughter, and that is, make it happen, don't let it happen.
Wow.
And, it's all about take action. If you don't like the way something is, change it.
Yeah.
If you see an opportunity, help with it.
Yeah.
If you care about something and you can make an impact, do it. So, yeah, I think it's all about action.
Make it happen, don't let it happen.
That's right.
That might be the title of this episode. I like that.
It's so true. It is. It's just take action. Yeah.
That's real. Okay, last question, number 5. What's one thing that you wish you would have known at the beginning of your career?
Wow. Yeah. When I think back to the beginning of my career and how it's gone, it's incredible. I mean, the turns it's taken and the opportunities have been wild. I think the one thing I would tell my younger self is, invest out of the gate financially.
Yeah.
Start to build your net worth early on, because quite honestly, later in life, that will afford you opportunities to do the things that you're passionate about, or maybe you want to help a nonprofit, those kind of things. It helps you along the way.
Yeah.
And invest in yourself, build your network, continue to learn, never stop looking at what's next. Yeah.
That's awesome. Tom, this has been an amazing episode.
It has. Thanks for the time, Christian.
Thanks for yours. And then there it is, guys. We'll see you all in the next episode of CIO Insights Podcast by ETS Solutions.